Hello and welcome to Perspectives, where we take a deep dive into the issues of the day and where we take a look at people's opinion on such issues. I'm Steve Ayorinde. Good to have you back on Perspectives here on Arise News. Today, we are diving into the growing craze for honorary doctorates, a trend sweeping through politics, business, and academia. But what happens when these revered titles, particularly doctor, become so ubiquitous that they lose their significance? This phenomenon reveals much about our society's relationship with validation, achievement, and identity. Titles like doctor should represent hard work, knowledge, and integrity. Yet, they are increasingly used as symbols of status rather than substance. While some honorary degrees are criticized as being awarded for financial contributions or influence, reputable institutions still adhere to strict criteria. These honors are meant to recognize individuals who demonstrate exceptional achievements, make significant societal contributions, and embody the values of the awarding institution. However, when such degrees are sold, it undermines the credibility of both the title and the institution. Join us as we try to unpack this trend, examine its implications, and address the pressing questions. Are we building a culture that prioritizes appearance over substance? We're heading for a short break, but stay with us because I will be back in a moment with greater details about our distinguished guests, Joseph Edgar and Udo Okonjo. Perspectives will return in just a moment. Good to have you back on Perspectives here on Arise News. Let us now take a minute or two to properly usher in our distinguished guests, starting with Joseph Edgar, who is popularly known as the Duke of Shomolu, a media entrepreneur, an investment banker and analyst, influential writer, two-time author, and theater producer. With over 20 years in investment and wealth management, Edgar also writes a weekly column for This Day newspaper. We also have joining us Udo Okonjo, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Fine & Country West Africa, an independent director, lawyer, and impact investor with 30 years plus experience. Udo drives growth, governance, and mentorship, transforming businesses and inspiring leadership across West Africa. Great to have both of you for this very important subject in the studio with us on Perspective. Good morning.
Good morning.
And shall I say Happy New Year? This is the first time, Edgar is he's very frequent here, but this is the first time. First time this year. Yeah. Good to have you guys, lady and gentleman, the Duke of Shomolu. Let's talk about titles. You've seen from the intro that I read there, we're dealing with, shall we say phenomenon, but then how uplifting will that be? Are we so much into titles, things that define us in a different way rather than, true accomplishments? I know that both of you are accomplished, but then maybe your own honorary doctorate, is working. Let's start with you, Udo. What are your initial thoughts on this subject matter? Every street you go, everywhere you turn to, somebody's parading himself or herself as a doctor. If sometimes you do not address them as such, they take offense. And then if you dig deep, you find out that they may not even be graduates or have a master's degree, but then they want to be addressed as doctors. How did we get here?
How did we get there? That's the big question. We get there by, creating a society where, in a sense, you did refer to it, it's now status over substance. Mm-hmm. It's about how we look, how we appear, rather than what we've actually contributed and what we're bringing to the table. Yeah. A society where we celebrate, in a sense, mediocrity or people who haven't really achieved, but they have titles. Yeah. And that title is what introduces them into spaces. And those titles are the things that we then, as it were, celebrate and revere. It's all over the place. Just to tell you a quick story, a friend of mine had a wedding, and the caterer and the event planners, both of them had doctorate degrees.
Wow.
Yes, and honorary doctorate degrees. The word honorary is exactly that. It's an honor.
It's an honor.
Based on substance, not based on the fact that you can pay a fee for it. And actually don that outfit, put on that cap, and then be conferred a doctorate degree. And then you have the audacity and the temerity to actually say, call me a doctor.
Yeah.
It is a question of values and standards rather than anything else.
Absolutely.
I'll leave it there.
Joseph, will you agree with that? Why are we too focused on appearance, these days? Can't your work define you as somebody who is accomplished rather than what sometimes what you buy, for you to be identified with?
Okay, so thank you so much, Steve, for having me. And also, I want to also greet my sister. My sister. I'm not saying great. Funny enough, two of my friends got this thing yesterday. And I must
Got
say,
what? Are you talking about Unilag or
Unilag,
proper PhD?
Proper PhD.
Academic excellence.
No, one academic excellence and one honorary. And
Okay.
I must say, upfront, that these two people really, really do deserve this. So one is Dr. Kule Alonge. He has a PhD in, I can't remember what it is, and I want to just congratulate him. And the other person is Kola Additional.
Yeah.
So he got honorary, and I think they said it was a rare thing being an alum. Nurse or feeling like getting all of that again. So, but that said, I think we have a problem in this country. The problem is plenty. And it's just manifesting. This PhD thing is just one other avenue with which our problem is generally manifesting. Me, myself, I'm looking for money. I'm saving towards going to buy my own, Because I always go through this,
That's a joke, right?
No, I'm serious. Once I get money, I'm going to buy. It's there. It's for sale.
But you just mentioned a friend or an associate of yours who was bestowed with an honorary degree. I mean, I will imagine that maybe there is nothing wrong when a Unilag, when a Great Ife, when a UI, when established institutions confer honorary doctorate degree on you, and it's usually stated, they will read it out, you will be celebrated. Why will you think you do not deserve that? Even if you do not have an academic PhD, rather than go and buy.
so this conversation, no, I'm not joking. This conversation is not about those who truly deserve it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you get?
Yes.
Either academically or by honor.
Yeah, but we must make a distinction.
I'm coming.
Yes.
So, and they're in the minority. We must say that very clearly.
Correct.
They're in the minority. So this conversation is about the majority who go around parading these things.
Yeah.
Do you get me now? So what we're trying to say now in essence now is that it is a symptom, do you get me now, of systemic failure in the country. Do you get me now?
It's a failure?
Where you can pull it from the fall in standards in education. You can pull it from there. Do you understand? Where you see somebody says, oh, the first major appointment he gets, he goes and buys his doctorate. Do you get? So he wants to give himself weight. Do you get? But that depth is not there. When the person opens his mouth, you realize that this is just garbage. But he gets his respect. That's why we have societal problems. So in big gatherings, in formal gatherings, in state functions, do you get me now? He gets his respect because he's a doctor in quotes. Do you get me now? And now, you now go back to funding of educational institutions in the country. Do you get me now? Yeah. So because there's paucity of funds, do you get? So they go into this venture. So research is not taken, due diligence is not taken as to the character and person you are conferring this thing on. Do you get? But because I have bills to pay, I have bills to pay. Funds are not coming in. Do you get me now? So I go that route. But I don't know. We are making a lot of noise right now. But when the Fuji musicians were calling and said Doctor Professor, we all liked it.
I don't know about that. I don't know about liking it. Do you want me to?
I mean, absolutely, you can respond. I don't know about liking it, but you're right.
Yes.
But what does this say about us as a people?
Right. And I think that's a real conversation. And you were talking about it. That's the real, it's a systemic failure. It's a failure of standards. It's a lowering of standards. It's a disappearance of standards all across board. And I would beg to differ on the issue of its education. It starts from leadership. Leadership is everything. It's John Maxwell who says that everything rises and falls with leadership. So what is our leadership across board modeling? Because this is not about the musicians or even the caterers. We have educated people who are taking on this honorary doctorate degrees, and some of them, rightfully so.
Who crave it.
Who crave it.
They crave it, they go after it,
And then
they purchase
my
it.
beef is actually, there are ethics about everything. There's etiquette. An honorary doctorate degree holder is not entitled to call themselves Dr. This, one. Two, you're not entitled to demand it of people to call you. That is the problem. And that's what speaks of the failure. Because you're trying to, in a sense, confer something that you actually already have, but you have a distorted view of how it should be essentially celebrated and all of that.
Yeah.
When you've been given a doctorate degree, it's because of your accomplishments.
Yeah.
Write it, put your name, doctorate, honorary, in bracket. I had a friend, got a doctorate degree many years ago, and I made the mistake of sending him a message and saying, "Hey, Edgar." And it's like,
Doctor.
excuse
He felt
you.
offended.
Yes.
Felt offended.
And remind you.
Call me doctor. And it's not just one person, several people. I'm talking about educated people, leaders, business leaders in society. So this isn't about education. There are lots of people who are bringing up our kids now in the various schools in Nigeria on value system, right? And so hopefully the next generation, in fact, I actually think they're more authentic because the next generation, they know who they are.
Yeah,
they're more connected to themselves. They don't want those titles. They don't want, it's not about the accolades. If anything, even when they have all these things, they try and put it aside because they want to connect with their core. They're purpose driven. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day,
Yes.
it's about leadership. It's a failure of our generation, the generation ahead of us, and all of that. And that's why we're talking about it, because standards are important. And it's important that we call it out.
Standards, absolutely.
Yes,
But I like the aspect of etiquette that you
Yes.
brought in.
Yeah.
Who should be addressed as what? There is always this argument, even in the academia, about whether, even if you have earned a PhD, whether you are allowed to call yourself Dr. So. Many people will say, Joseph Edgar, PhD. If you are a medical doctor, Joseph Edgar, MD,
Right.
MD on top of it. But then you have those who have been conferred with honorary doctorate degrees, either legitimately or the other route, deliberately putting doctor at the beginning of that. You find it everywhere, even in, shall we say, religious institutions. Not just in politics, not just in business, even in religious institutions. So much so that the titles are so long these days, chief, doctor, and then every other thing. Who should we be calling out? Who should begin to look for a way to correct this sort of anomaly?
Let me try. I don't think she's blame leadership. I don't think leadership should take so much of the blame here, because I sit down from my bedroom and come and say, "Doctor, now that concern leadership." I think
You're a leader.
Oh, okay, maybe
So if
that's
you do that,
okay. Maybe that's
that's
sense.
what I'm
But what
talking.
about the media?
Yeah.
Maybe
Should the media just accept to call you what you choose to call yourself?
I was going there because there was an influential media house that had the Mr. policy.
The Guardian.
Yes, whatever you want to be,
Absolutely.
you are a Mr. You get, and that was a good start.
In those days, not anymore.
But it's gone now. You get, like it's like I already said, it's a whole big thing. The PhD thing, the doctorate thing is just a small subset of
I
it.
agree.
You get me now? So there's this penchant for profiling you based on appearance. There's profiling you based on assets.
Do you know who I am syndrome?
Do you know who I am? You get, so this PhD thing is just it's just the ink on the rain now.
Yeah.
You get, and you see female chief executives, that's one that baffles me the most. Female chief executives, and I'm happy madam is here. Is a young lady. We know how rigorous it is to do a doctorate.
Yeah.
In every single sense of the word.
Yeah.
You get, and then somebody is made ED of a big bank or MD of an insurance company or like the other one in the power sector, and then one second is a doctor. Is a doctor. All the bank female MDs are doctors. How? When did you marry? When did you do?
So does
Edgar,
Edgar, does it?
why is
does
it
it
the women you're calling out?
I didn't deliberately to look for your trouble.
It's Otumba this, Chief this, all of this have been. It's when the women started getting doctorate degree. Now it's paining you as it were.
No, it's paining me.
That's what got us into this conversation. Actually,
just 1 second. Does it have to do with who is more amenable to paying for it? Who will appreciate it if we come, a cap in hand and say you deserve,
but they buy
honorary
this,
doctorate degree
you
from
get
us.
these doctorate degrees because it's not about this thing you're saying now.
Yeah.
Because you can get it from a school that is in someone's big.
we're not even talking about Nigerian schools. I almost brought my own 8 invitations. I've received 8 in the last 2 years.
Asking you to.
They're marketing you.
Yes.
Asking you to do what?
Offering me doctorate degrees, honorary doctorate degrees, various amounts, so that's it. And if I wanted to, listen, I started my doctorate degree, my first daughter is 28 years ago.
Wow.
And I abandoned it. So I know what it means to get a doctorate degree.
Yeah.
It is work.
Absolutely.
It is hard work.
Somebody that you know, I mean, you did was yesterday. Someone that you know.
It takes work.
Mrs. Nkechi Alibalogun.
Right.
She earned a doctorate degree, and she put something out on social media, analyzing what she went through.
What it takes,
in
even
her
to
60s,
write your dissertation,
to earn that thing.
Yes.
So there ought to be. People would think that it is disrespectful to those who have genuinely worked for that academic excellence.
Yes.
So therefore, should there be a new order to how institutions confer these doctorate degrees on individuals?
There's always been orders.
Is it all too common?
The Oxfords of this world, the Harvards of this world, and definitely the institutions in Nigeria that are respectable, they all have standards.
Yeah.
There's essentially an established set of standards for conferring these honorary doctorate degrees.
Yeah.
They're usually tied to the values of the school, the purpose of the school, the mission of the school. They're celebrating something.
That's right.
It is these rogue institutions who have no standards, who have no requirements except a financial exchange. Yeah. So it's transactional, really. So where should we start calling it out? This conversation. So you are demonstrating leadership at Arise TV by having this sort of conversation. Because really, to your point about the failure of our system, our social system, the way we approach things, the way we look at things. If your child is sent out from a school, what do you do behind the doors and all of that stuff? What do we do in our private, our public and private sector? Yeah. Corruption is part of this. This is corruption, really and truly, when you essentially ascribe a sort of standard that you've not actually attained. Yeah. So those are the real conversations. It is about standards, and these standards, they're robbing us. It's costing us in society.
It is.
It's costing us business. It's costing us as a country. Because guess what? Standards are about credibility. And it's not credibility that determines, as it were, the value that people confer on you. Absolutely. So quite frankly, if you're a business leader, you already have, accomplishments. You have all of these accolades. When you get a doctorate degree that's an honorary, take it on if it's from the right institution. But one, do not insist on being called Dr. This, because what that does is that it actually diminishes your credibility.
It does diminish you.
Right?
It
and
does.
then the institutions who are doing it, because they're rogue, we're not really worried about them, because any real person knows that it doesn't make sense for someone to offer you a doctorate in exchange for for cash. Yeah. Right? For cash, it just goes against the whole
because you
principle
have
honor.
So-called foreign institutions offering doctorate degrees, but then they will now say the conferment will be done in your country. Yes. I mean, what else will establish the fact that exactly? Yes. So my point, Edgar, is that if we know some of these things to be an aberration, in fact, to be borderline fraud, if they go after such institutions, what about those who have benefited from that rogue arrangement? Should they still be addressed, as doctors? Sometimes as professors. Some even acquire professorship.
But government has done something. When government came out to say, in the last situation, to say, we're not recognizing degrees from certain schools.
Yes.
It's from certain countries. That's the first step.
Yes.
Then the next step is society. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So if society raises its nose at somebody who is parading himself at that. Do you get me now? He will, because most of this thing is showy. Most of this thing is image. You get his positioning. Do you get me now? So they enjoy the accolade. They enjoy the ego that comes with saying, "Oh, I am."
Yeah.
You get, So if society as a whole begin to start looking away from such people, you get, then you begin to see this. But it's very difficult because, like I said, this is just a recent manifestation
sometimes
of
it's a society that seems to
that
offer you
that. Because
that they think that you at this point deserve it because you have risen in your career.
The truth is that so we have people parading dodgy doctorate degrees, just as we have people parading dodgy chieftaincy titles.
Yes.
We have people parading dodgy religious titles. We have people parading dodgy sporting titles and all of that. So it's a whole community of fraud. You get orchestrated by a society that's lost its direction.
Yes.
Are you guys me now? So it's for people that have sense, you get to begin to now try to recalibrate. And as I just mentioned with the younger generation, you see, I'm having tremendous hope with the next generation at all levels, politics, economics, business, and all of that. You get me? Because the way they see things, the way we see things, we, our generation, are a generation born and bred in servitude. You get, because we're born and bred in servitude. When we were coming up, it was the professions, lawyer, whatever. And those people are not trained to be innovative. Tick the boxes. You get, so that's servitude, and that fits into this. So if I can't succeed as a doctor, as an engineer or something, then I'm going to get it one way or the other, get my respect. But the next generation are fluid, they're more creative, they're innovative, they know who they are. So I don't have to have an honorary doctorate. I don't have to be a chief. Honorary chief is to know who I am, to actualize my full potentials in society.
Yeah, but Joseph, I think it is important to also establish that, just like we have done with credible institutions who find certain individuals worthy and confer, sometimes, twice, thrice, double, honors. But I think it is important to also establish that honorary chieftaincies may also not be bad on their own. It is, traditional monarchs, looking at Joseph Edgar from my community, he has done so much by way of theater, by way of and they feel that we can honor him with a traditional chieftaincy title. But the problem, therefore, will now be those, just like for the PhD, who go out, solicit, and say, I deserve it.
That one, this chieftaincy one has even been more bastardized.
The Otumbas, the Odogus, the Ezes.
We saw a chief yesterday now.
Where?
A chief of Igbo chief in Lagos. He had the news report yesterday. So they couldn't find him guilty for the original something, but they found out that he had conferred on himself a chieftaincy title in Lagos. So he was jailed for impersonation. So we see people confer on themselves these things. We see people go to look for these things. You get me now? So because it's traditional institution, which is even not that orchestrated by visual word, so it's easier to that one is even finished.
I want to speak to the point about there are some people who deserve this. You just talked about, Lagos Business School just graduated its first DBAs, Doctorate in Business Administration, right? Great, kudos to those people who went through the rigorous hard work. I've been trying to apply for a DBA since the pandemic started. It's now 2025. The fact is that it takes work, so we must celebrate those people, and we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. People who deserve the honorary degree, loads of them. Nelson Mandela had more than 50 honorary degrees. He was consistently and constantly referred to as Mr. Nelson Mandela. Never Doctor, at the most Madiba, right? So it really comes down to your point about society and how we've lost our way, how we've lost what value looks like, how we've lost what honor looks like, right? There's a cultural issue going on there. However, let's go to those who actually have this honor, whether you got it through a proper academic rigor or it was conferred on you. A lot of the, in quote, good quality people are in hiding. We have invisible leadership. And in today's world, to your point about innovation, about creativity, about media, the world is now global. Everybody's on social media, on LinkedIn, on all that stuff. And it is who is being seen and heard that sets the agenda and the values. Whereas the people with substance are hiding. They're afraid of showing up. They don't speak because they've been crowded out.
So that they don't, exactly,
they
don't join the crowd like, you know.
And they don't need to join
come.
the crowd. They can stand and speak substance, speak
But
like
they'll
what
be
we're
bullied.
doing. Listen, you need to have courage as a leader. Leadership is not for cowards. It is not. There's actually a book that has that title.
Yes.
So if you're a leader and you have substance,
Yes.
you have a responsibility to stand up,
Yes.
show up, and speak about high standards and essentially embody it.
Yeah.
And so they will bully you, but you take a stand. And guess what happens? People then come around you, and then you start creating a tribe of the people who are authentic, who are excellent, and who are courageous to change society. And we must change society.
Absolutely fantastic. Let's hang it there just a bit so that we go on a quick break. When we return, Perspectives will continue. Don't go away. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. You're welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. And I still have in the studio with me Mrs. Udo Okonjo, a lawyer, and of course, Joseph Edgar, the Duke of Shomolu, on the very interesting topic of the issue of honorary doctorate degrees and what it means in our society. We were talking about the issues of, you know, how can this, does it say something about us culturally? But I'm also interested in the distinction, you know, between somebody who was rightly, deservedly honored with an academic title, and the other one who were not even sure of the quality of the school. How should the society begin to move away from this over-fixation on titles, whether it is doctor, whether it is prof, whether it is chieftaincy title, and then shift to the path of true distinction and honor? Where do you think, you know, the direction should be?
Let me speak to that. So I like that we're making the distinction because I think it's important.
Absolutely.
Definitely, to whom honor is due, you give the honor.
Honor is given,
You know, the academics who do the work, you know, doctor, whatever, even though in more advanced societies, as you had alluded, it's not necessarily, you know, that they're called doctor this.
Yeah.
They put the PhD at the end.
At the end,
But if you choose
absolutely.
to call doctor, fair enough.
If you've earned it.
However, there's an etiquette to honorary degrees, and that etiquette, best practice, is that you are not referred to as doctor this based on an honorary degree.
That's right.
It is written at the end of your name, in bracket, honorary.
Yes.
Honorary causa, or
Honorary
however
causa,
it's
yeah.
written,
Yeah.
right? So it is a fixation because we've moved from essentially substance and focusing on what you bring to the table, on legacy, on contribution, on service, on all those things that have eternal value, current and, you know, forever value, to now essentially posturing, to now essentially the things that are fleeting, as it were. So who fixes this? I believe we've all said the same thing. We do. And how do we do it? By first acknowledging what is the right thing. You'll be amazed how, to a large extent, in industries, because as you said, this is just a hint of what's going on across board in all sectors, from real estate to banking to medicine. We have rogue activities and rogue behaviors and also standards that have blurred the lines. And it is our responsibility as leaders to begin to address those things. That's why we have the Lagos Business School of this world in terms of creating institutions that raising business leaders and all of that
True
stuff.
legacies.
So true legacy is what matters, and we must begin to teach that in every way. The people we honor within our institutions, let it be about, you know, not that, you know, your child came into the business or somebody that you know from, you know, you promote people. So we see it in all the places. That's why you can go to certain places and you have a certain ethnicity. You go to certain places and you have another ethnicity. So if we really want to talk truth, it's all over the place.
Absolutely.
But who addresses it? The media has significant power.
Role to play.
We also have power. That's why you wrote about it. I wrote about it. And that's why we're having this conversation. We must have the courage to begin to call out real standards. Because as I said earlier, it is costing us. It's costing us credibility individually. It's costing credibility of your institution as far as I'm concerned. But I will be amiss if I don't address what Edgar spoke about.
I was going to. Okay. Let me prepare a ground for you so that you can now build on that. Duke, you mentioned the female CEOs who
female
all
side of this problem.
Who all have. My point is, you have worked with a number of accomplished thespians who are professors.
Yeah.
You know, writing, directing plays for you and everything. You know what it means to have true academic excellence.
Yeah.
But then when you now go as a marketer or a producer, executive producer, to look for funds for your project, you are now being introduced to bank MDs and executive directors who are referred to as doctors. And you know that they haven't earned them, you know, from the academic sense. What does it say to you, even though it's going to respond to the fact that, why are you picking on women only? What does that say to you? Is it a loss of focus, or does it have to do with credibility versus commerce?
No, I say a lot of insecurity on the part of those people who do those things.
Even after you've risen to the position of an executive director or an MD in a bank?
Yes. And I explain to you, thank you for bringing this bank inside the matter. So they're
your sponsors, though.
I know. I know. So it's a double cylinder thing in the finance world, you know, how you move up.
Yeah.
Do you get it? It's a double cylinder thing. So one is performance, do you get me now? And then the other one is back-end operations. You get? So the operation, someone in operations would, Jesus has to come down for that person to be MD of the bank. There has to be a fraud somewhere, then take the person go and hold it down for a period, you know. So the person who is in marketing, you get me, has a better chance of getting to the top because her performance is there for everybody to see. You get me now? Now, but because of the kind of situation we find ourselves, you move very fast on the performance level through marketing, business development. So we know
because you're bringing in money,
and we know what happens for that money to be coming. So as you are moving as fast as you are moving, you're not garnering depth. You're not understanding the business. You don't even know what they use the money to do. So you are bringing Julius Berger account, you are bringing federal government account. You don't know how that money is turned. You don't know the value creation process because you are just bringing in the cash. And as you're getting that cash, you're being rewarded by promotions. Do you get me now? So by the time you get to ED, DGM, your conscience cannot lie to you. Your conscience will tell you that you are empty.
I think a lot of bankers will disagree with you.
No. I said I've been there for 25 years. As a banker, do you get me now? As a finance person, banking, insurance, I said I've been there for 25 years. And I'm also engaging them, do you get me now, on this other side, looking for sponsorship, do you get me now? The kinds of questions you get asked, you look at it again. The kind of questions you have, you look at it again. You're talking to an ED, an executive director, you get, who doesn't understand, doesn't know what they call the PE ratio. That's the simplest thing in the market. Do you get me now? But an executive director, 25 years banking experience.
But those are aberrations, aren't they?
No.
They're not wise.
No. You'll be surprised.
They're not widespread.
No, you'll be really surprised. You'll be really surprised.
That's damning account.
No, I'm telling you for a fact on live TV that you'll be really, really surprised.
I agree that there's
let me land.
Go ahead. Please go ahead.
So when you find yourself in that's why CBN came in to say that for you to cross to the ED level, you must meet certain criteria, you must pass certain, because that was them understanding that problem.
Right.
If that problem was not widespread, that thing will not come. That CBN benchmark will not come. So when you cross that benchmark, you still feel the need to buffer yourself up. So that's where the honorary doctorating comes in. You need to buffer yourself up, doctor something. For
validation?
For validation, God bless you. Now, why I'm picking on the women, why I'm not picking on the men, is that...
You're still insisting on this point?
And I apologize in advance. But why I'm picking on the women is that we know this is a very beautiful woman here now.
Yes.
It's a mother, it's a wife.
A grandmother.
Yes. You get me now? So we know what it takes to juggle career and home front.
PhD in waiting, by the way.
And home front. You get me now? Then we also know what it takes, do you get me now, to add a PhD, rigors of a PhD structure, you get from a serious organization.
Yeah.
Do you get me now? Then, the moment somebody is made ED, MD, the next person pays PhD. I'm asking myself questions. The lady who did let's don't call names here now, but
No, don't call a name.
Yeah, the power company. You get, and look at the age. Look at the marital status. Look at the number of years in the industry. Do you get me now? There's no way this person will get that PhD.
Okay, Edgar, I think first of all, there are a couple of things wrong with some of the things you're saying, right? In there's so much implicit bias that you may not realize. And let me point them out.
It's obvious. You even have to apologize for it.
Let me explain. First of all, you're assuming that, so this is the problem right here, what you just said. And a lot of men in business have this bias without realizing it. And that's why we must continue to call these things out. You've just assumed that because a woman runs a home, raises children, is in business, that she's not able to get a doctorate degree. No. You just said it. You implied her age. You implied the fact that she's a woman and she's juggling many things.
Very difficult.
Very difficult. And it's happening.
Yeah,
Dr. Ngozi Okonjo has a doctorate degree.
Agree.
And when did she get it? In her 20s, early 30s, when she had children. The lady who was on this same set with me exactly a year ago, now, Nkiri Olumide Ojo, she just got her doctorate degree. She's a woman, she has a family. There are many women I can begin to call names who are juggling things, and therein lies the power of women. The fact that we can juggle all of these things and still emerge with substance.
And there are many more.
And I don't want to say unlike the men, but let me come to the point. So
that really is what should be celebrated.
So that should be celebrated.
Yes, but not on this.
But instead, you actually, Edgar, you're referring to it. That's the implicit bias you have. First of all, you alluded to the fact that these women, it's unlikely that they're able to have gone through the rigor. However, let me come back to the point.
Specific women,
let me come back to this.
Not the Okonjo type of women.
Let me say.
Why are you picking on women? Why are you picking on? What about all this?
When you finish making the noise, Edgar, I'm going to answer you.
You must apologize.
You really must, because you did the same thing. When they became MD, you parodied them. You had all this picture. We love all you. Yes, you.
You saw the cartoon?
Of course, I saw the cartoon, and I was going to take you up then, but I gave you your time until you did this doctorate degree, and that's what led me to write that article.
Yes.
To say, hang on a minute, do you have a problem with women? I know you don't. That's the truth.
No,
I've seen you, but there are biases that you have that you may not even know about, and it's showing up. And it showed up in that article because you're calling out this women. But we've had the men essentially pushing the boundaries of honorary, not just degrees, titles that they're not entitled to at the home front, in business, everywhere. We have men who are essentially being, as it were, positioned as really more than they are. And we all go along. And you guys, have you heard of the parable of the naked king?
No.
I'll leave that aside. But the point is...
The one that was dance naked?
Exactly. Is that, and there are a lot of men who are exactly what you're talking about, who have not earned the honor that we're conferring on them. But because they are men, nobody questions it. A handful of women have honorary degrees.
It's not handful.
Hold on. A handful of them.
It's not handful.
Maybe you should go do the poll, right? So that you can have facts. But the point I'm making is that it is convenient. And it is doing society a disservice when you begin to put this on women who have worked hard and attained. And your point about a woman who's been in a bank and is now MD and all of that stuff, I beg to disagree that it is impossible for you to get to that level and not understand the way businesses work. It's now that we have a lot of women as MDs. That's why this conversation is now coming up. But
Fantastic.
I don't agree with that.
Another program, this female MD thing.
Well, that would be another program. But Joseph, let's come back to the broader implications and the effect of this sort of a thing. And I like the fact that even though it is contentious, I like the fact that you're using institutions like a banking institution where people are also soliciting for external validation. Now, the broader implication, how do we begin to talk seriously to ourselves? The question of self-worth, the question of identity in a way. A popular term that was used during the Dirty December, thing was, I just got back. Now, it looks to me like some of these things will have to do with I have made it syndrome.
Absolutely.
And therefore, all of a sudden, somebody, who's a generally, easygoing, ordinary person becomes a councillor or becomes, a member of the House of Assembly or a commissioner or even, becomes an executive director, and then there's a policeman attached to him. Vehicles are changed, and then banks are coming all over to say, you need a certain type of card, in your pocket. You need a certain type of title. Is this does it have to do with the black man? Or is this our version in Nigeria of a black man?
Okay, so I think we'll be doing Nigerians a great disservice if we just say it's only Nigerians. It's all over the world. It's a pretentious world. Do you get? But let's bring ourselves back to Nigeria. You get? I think that, as I alluded to earlier, I think that oasis of corrections should start to manifest, if not. You get oasis. So in my own organization, if you walk into my office and you say, Doctor something, I say, from where? Do you get? I will ask you from where. So next time when you're coming, you keep it at the you get me now? But you see, I have suffered that level of discrimination, if I may say that, because of my outlook towards life, because of the way I look, the way I dress. So you walk into big investment banking meetings and my partner is apologizing on my behalf. Now me get some puzzle on for this room.
Then you're looking a bit unconventional.
Because I'm unconventional, you get me now. So it's just part of the pretension. You get, and then you have that meeting. You get, I begin to see the realization that this guy is not a drug addict though.
It's not a dons.
It's not a donzo. It's not what he's talking about. You get, Duke, I beg. You get me now. So if everybody can try within himself to build that power base that says, look, this is who I am. You get? Then you'll be able to push it out there. Then I don't need to have a doctorate to validate myself. I don't need to wear a suit to show that I'm a brilliant investment banker. I don't need to be an Otumba, do you get me now, to be able to walk to the Federal Executive Council and make my point, very strongly so. Do you get me now? So what has happened is that because of the lowering of something I just talked about, you get, balloons, vacuous balloons have found themselves in positions of authority and influence, and they now become role models. You get? So when you see somebody with 642 traditional titles, 48 doctorate degrees, and the person goes to a primary school, but that person is in a position of high power, is a high-profile person, respected everywhere, then you begin to see other people wanting to be like that.
Right. Yeah, but does that not project the idea of that you are well accepted or well loved?
Yes, I
know. There might be an impostor syndrome somewhere.
I was just going to go there, that actually, there's a sense in which this whole idea of impostor syndrome has been tagged onto women. But actually, it's not just women.
It's not me that tagged them down.
No. Well, maybe not. But I mean, in many women leadership circles, the conversation about imposter syndrome and all of that. Anytime you need external validation to essentially ascertain that you are who you are. Somebody else has to tell
prove yourself,
it's like, I always like to say, if you have to prove a point, you have missed the point. And we're in a world where we're constantly having to prove the point. To your point, somebody has dreadlocks. We assume that he's not intelligent.
God bless you.
If you have blonde hair, you assume. You just said now, of all the things you could have said about me, I'm a brilliant woman.
Yes.
Right? I'm a brilliant businesswoman.
Yes.
But what you said is, beautiful woman, mother, this. All that is great.
But I said brilliant too.
Hold on. No. Okay, maybe you did. I'm not trying to whatever, but...
He intended to say you.
You said what you wanted to say.
He got carried away with other things.
I accept it, right? Nothing wrong with that. Yes. But it's about what are we looking at? And the truth is, we'll all have to acknowledge. There are many places. I have my young son who's come back to Nigeria. He's working here, and he goes to places because of the kind of car he drives. He's noticed that when he goes with our car, they just fling open the gate. If he goes with his raggedy old car, in fact, he made a TikTok about it the other day, and it raised a lot of, whatever. Why? Because we are a society of keeping up appearances. And we have all bought into it from the top to the bottom. That is the truth. So let's just acknowledge it. Absolutely. So it's little pockets of sanity like you refer to. It's having these conversations. I may not ask someone, where did you get it from? I may be a bit more subtle, a bit more whatever, but you have your power and you will ask. And that's good because we need courage, right? So we begin to ask these questions, right? And so it becomes that we begin to shift the standards a little at a time, and it begins to happen.
Yeah.
To your point about these people, because it is true, you can get to the top, you can be a governor, you can be whatever you are, and still not have a sense of self-worth. It is not conferred by titles.
Yes.
It is conferred by you having done the difficult work of discovering who you are as a leader, because leaders are first humans with capacity, with results, you've made a difference. Those are the things that give you value.
Yeah.
And many leaders don't have that. And of course, that's why they then need all of these, as it were, cover-ups. And we bought into it, and so we help them cover up. We call them the titles.
Absolutely.
We introduce them, we clap for them, and when we go to speak in places, they will read all of these citations. Is that really necessary?
Yeah.
It's not that necessary. Summarize it. But some people, if you summarize it, they will take offense.
Real offense, yeah.
So it's about standards. It's really what, to your point earlier. And
Absolutely.
the way we begin is little at a time. How do
Yeah.
you eat an elephant? A little at a time. We're having the conversation.
Fantastic.
And then in our circles, we begin to question. And I need to say this. I do believe that sometimes people are just ignorant, to be fair, right? So some of these leaders have been misled, okay? Because we have a society that is already warped.
You're right.
So you have your communications people, you have your PR people, and they come and they sell these things. I can't tell you how many times we get invitations. Oh, you're receiving this award. And I'm like, for what? Ask those intelligent questions, right? So they're receiving these doctorate degrees and they're tagging on to it and asking people to call them doctor and all of that stuff. One, I think it's ignorance. So perhaps with this conversation, we can begin to shift the dial.
Absolutely.
Right? So I would like to give just a little bit of that grace.
Okay.
To those who
a few people who might just not know.
may not know. And hopefully they change it. So tomorrow, go on your LinkedIn, take off that doctor this. If you have and you want to demonstrate credibility, that's my challenge to those who've gotten it. However you've gotten it, actually.
Fantastic.
We will celebrate you, but do the right thing.
If it's deserving.
Absolutely.
All right, as we begin to wrap up, I'll give you 1 minute each to, conclude your thoughts in terms of how do we move forward from this sort of a thing? You've started it already. But then in a society where, particularly for the political class, the threshold for qualifications is school certs. And you do not even need to pass. You just have to demonstrate that I passed through secondary school. But then once you now go through that route and you now become part of the political class, the first thing that you go for is validation by way of chieftaincy or doctorate, honorary doctorate, etc. Should we begin to, how should we begin to do things differently? Speak to the man and to the woman out there who think that, I didn't realize that I was doing anything wrong. Edgar.
So how do you continue flawed? It has no beginning, it has no end. So you just cordon on your own side. And I hope that every other person will do their own bid. It's a pretentious society. I won't say that we should give up hope. Do you get? But like we have discussed here, there has to be pockets of sanity, like she's called it. Do you get? That would address these issues little by little. We might not be in our generation and all of that. But let me just say one last thing here. Let me congratulate my brother, Dr. Alonge, because I know he worked for it. And then my other brother, Kola, additional, in bracket, Honorary,
You're doing PR.
Exactly.
But people should be celebrated. I agree with you if they've earned it.
These two represent the very best in those categories that we've talked about here.
Nkiru Olumide.
Sorry, and Dr. Nkiru Olumide. And I apologize.
And Dr. Nkechi Alibalobo, another woman who has done for few seconds.
Yes, I will wrap up by saying that we need to move from labels to legacy, a legacy mindset, and that really means that we now need to start teaching leadership at all levels, in business, in schools, in government, everywhere. We need to teach leadership, because when you have a leadership mindset, the real what it means to be a leader, you will actually push away these types of essentially shallow definitions, right? So that's the thing. The second thing I'd like to say is that authenticity is actually the best brand. when you are who you are and you understand that who you are is powerful
Be true
enough
to yourself.
and is complete without the titles, without the labels, without the networks, without all of those things, that who you are is enough. And when you bring value to the table, you will be valued. So I think that authenticity is super important, and we must begin to embody it, and we must begin to celebrate those who are authentic to themselves and the way that they present. And then third point that I would say is that we must have the courage of conviction.
Absolutely.
To then call people to order when they're doing the wrong
When
thing.
they're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mrs. Udo Okonjo, Joseph Edgar, the Duke of Shomolu, I want to thank you both for these brilliant, excellent submissions today on this very important topic, for joining us on Perspectives. Thank you indeed. In conclusion, the growing fascination with honorary doctorates reveals deeper societal values around validation and achievement. While these titles can recognize exceptional contributions, their overuse as status symbols risks diluting their significance and credibility. As we reflect on this trend, let's challenge ourselves to prioritize authenticity and meaningful impact over mere labels. The true measure of achievement lies not in the title we carry, but in the substance of our contributions to society. That's all we have time for today. You've been watching Perspectives here on Arise News with me, Steve Ayoride. The show will return same time next week. Until then, do stay safe and have a wonderful week.